and welcome to episode 2 of SplashCast, the Swim Wales podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm James, and we've got another packed show for you this month. We caught up with Verity Cook, who was recently a team manager with Paralympics GB in Paris. And we also chat to Lily Rice, who was our Commonwealth Games Bronze Medalist from 2022 in Birmingham.
So without further ado, we'll jump straight into our chat with Verity, fresh off the back of the Paralympic Games. Verity had some really touching stories and anecdotes that I know we enjoyed hearing about, and I'm sure you will too. So sit back and enjoy.
We're excited to be joined for the second episode of SplashCast, the Swim Wales podcast, by Verity Cook, who's Athlete Support Officer at Swansea University and was a team manager out in Paris for Paralympics GB, involved with the swimming team. Thank you for joining us, Verity. How are you?
No worries, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I've recovered from Paris now, so we're alive and functioning this week.
That was a busy time for you. I mean, first things first, what an amazing experience, what an amazing, few weeks and months for you. Looking back with it, all sunk in now, how do you reflect on your time out there?
I'm not too sure it still has sunk in yet, to be fair. I've been back 2 weeks now, but we were 3 weeks holding camp and at the games, so I'm still not sure I fully had time to appreciate everything that I was involved in whilst I was there, but it was amazing. It was an absolute immense kind of 3 weeks to be involved with, and just like a huge privilege to work with the team.
Because you've been involved in para swimming and swimming for a long time now, obviously former Swim Wales events manager as well. Just looking back, tell us about your journey. How did you first get into the sort of team manager aspect of it, and did you ever think it would take you to a Paralympic Games?
Yeah, so I guess my journey team managing actually started probably 2.5 years ago, maybe nearly 3, when I was event manager at Swim Wales, and I hosted one of the events for the British. We hosted the Winter Nationals for British swimming at the time, for the para event, and that was when I first started working with para swimming at all, and that's when kind of the head coach and the head of pathways, so Rob Aubrey and Jackie Marshall, kind of approached me and said, what do you want to do career-wise? And events was never what I wanted to do. I always wanted to work in performance lifestyle, which is what I do at Swansea Uni, and do team managing. I always wanted to be in that space of just working with people and people development and just getting the best out of people, but not in a coaching way. I never wanted to be a coach. So it was that kind of working in sport, but not being a sports coach element that I always wanted to do without realizing. I did sports science as a degree, but went down the physiology route, and it wasn't until I worked with Welsh Triathlon that I realized actually I'm a people person. I don't want to be doing numbers and stats and stuff. So that's when I first came involved with them, and they were like, well, we'd love to have you on, it looks like you work really well. They're like, do this course. I was like, okay, send me the link and I'll do this course, which was the team manager training that at the time British Women, so Aquatics GB now run, did that online. And then I think that was in the January, and then in the May I was out in Lanzarote on my first warm weather training camp with them. So it was a pretty short and sharp introduction into para sport. It was a jump straight in the deep end. I literally got to poolside in Lanzarote and they gave me a tapper. I'm like, okay, you're in here, you're getting on with it now. And I'm like, okay, this is how it works in para sport. So yeah, it was not your most direct route into team managing, but something that I now wouldn't look back and do any differently.
Yeah, do you think you benefited from that kind of steep learning curve?
Oh yeah, massively, because I think team managing in general, para or Olympic, you've always got to learn on the go. There's always something that you've just got to pick up and run with and go. There's always a plan, but there's always going to be something that throws you off the plan. So I think just that steep learning curve of just going, all right, okay, it's one of those duck analogies. You might be panicking under the water, but on the top you're nice and cool and calm and collected, and just kind of get on with it a little bit.
And para sport is such a wide spectrum, isn't it, of abilities and different people. Is that challenging? Is it more rewarding? How do you find it?
It also obviously comes with its challenges. I find it way more rewarding. I really do enjoy it more than Olympic team managing, to be honest, just because how grateful they are for your help and support, because they need it. Like there's people on the team that can't do the sport without you, and it just feels like you're adding more value to them. You feel like you are really contributing to their journey. I don't get me wrong, I love working with the kind of Olympic side of the sport as well, but it just brings you something else to do. And when I go team manage on the Olympic side now, I'm like, oh, I'm a bit bored. Like, what do you do when they're actually swimming? Because you're not needed when they're at the competition pool very much. Whereas when you're in parasport, you're needed all the time for something. So it is very different between the two of them.
I guess that relationship management is huge, especially, you know, on the greatest stage of the Paralympic Games. You know, there's going to be a lot of disappointment, a lot of, you know, ecstasy, and, you know, people reaching their goals. I guess, is it hard to kind of ride that wave as well with the athletes?
Yeah, it is, but you just have to stay so level, because you've got to be that bit that's consistent for them. So like if they're really down low, you're just bringing them back up to that consistent bar, and if they're really high, you're letting them ride it, but not for too long that they don't crash after. So I think whilst you're there, you don't notice it because you just are like on autopilot. You're just being that consistent person all the way through. But when you get back and you're decompressing yourself from being to a major games, you're like, oh yeah, that was really big. But at the time, because you are just being that consistent person, you're like, didn't realize it at the time, because you just have to be level. You're just moving on to the next thing. You can't let things affect you too much because there's people depending on you as well. So it's weird. Now I look back and I'm like, there were some really big things that happened, like medals, successes, like athletes getting upset, like anything. But for me at the time, it was like, let's just make these not as small as possible, but as normal as possible. And let's just deal with them and move on to the next bit, really.
It's interesting to hear you talk about sort of your experiences both recently at the Paralympics and how you got into parasport in the first place. So for anyone maybe watching this or listening to this, what advice would you give them in terms of maybe what to expect or how to get into parasport as you have?
I think expect the unexpected, to be honest. But go in and just be open to it all. I went in really knowing very little about parasport at all, other than the fact that they are athletes and I just want to treat them like I would treat anybody else. Go in with an open mind and be willing to learn. Don't go in thinking you know something or someone, because everybody will be different and everybody will wanting to do it in a different way. But just go in 2 feet in, and you can't be half in, half out. You've got to be fully in, willing to learn, and just be there for the right reasons, as if you would for any team manager, because they'll see straight through you, especially the intellectually impaired ones. They'll tell you straight as how it is, and if they clock onto the fact you're not there for the right reasons, or they'll tell you straight, and it can be some of the funniest stories can come out of those, to be fair, though, as well. So yeah, just go straight in. Don't go in with any preconceptions, because everybody's disability is different. They could all be autistic, but they're all very different, or they could be in a wheelchair, but their conditions could be at polar opposite ends of a spectrum. So I think it is such a uniquely individualized sport because of the conditions that they have and impairments. So I think just jump in, 2 feet in, no preconceptions, and just be willing to learn, and you won't go too far wrong, to be fair.
Sounds good. And I guess to maybe drill in, maybe go back to basics a little bit for anyone again watching or listening who maybe doesn't even know what a team manager is or what a team manager would do specifically. Think about all those skills and what to expect that you just talked about. What does a team manager do, sort of in the role specifically, if you can answer that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's one of those ones that there isn't a definition that would probably suit every scenario. So I guess in general, a team manager is there to look after and support the athlete team. And that could be anything from logistics. So like sorting them out, getting on the flight or the train, getting them from A to B on the buses and through the timetables. So you've got that kind of logistic angle of just making sure people are getting where they need to be. You've then got your competition support. So you can be at the competition venue then looking after the athletes that are there. You could be in parasport, you could be supporting. In Olympic sport, you could be there for any kind of disqualifications that need paperwork doing for and those sorts of things. And then I guess you've got that kind of emotional support side of a team manager as well, where you're just going to be there and you're going to be a bit of a mum a little bit to them, and just be on the bumpy road that they're on as well. So I think it's so broad and anything can land on your plate, like honestly anything. But I guess it probably factors into those three areas of kind of logistics and support, and then competition venue where you'll be in, and like I say, different for Paralympic to Olympic, and then kind of that emotional support element as well. Mostly towards the athletes is probably where the team manager works, but we obviously work with the coaching and sports science and medicine staff as well, but we don't manage them, we just work with them. So we more manage the athletes around that, but working like mega closely with the coaches because they obviously are managing the athletes from a performance angle, whereas we're kind of looking after them more from a day-to-day functioning and getting around angle. So roughly, but anything can land on your plate, honestly.
And it was a great game to be a part of, obviously, like the most successful in a long time for GB and Welsh athletes, as well. What was it like just being a part of a team who, gained historic success in Paris?
Again, it's really bizarre. So being in Paris, I felt like I was kind of on an episode of like Big Brother or an In Truman Show. It all felt very not fake, because it wasn't fake at all, but didn't feel normal. I could have been anywhere in the world other than Paris because I literally only saw the village and the pool. So in that sense, it felt very bizarre and kind of a bit not real life. But in terms of it being like the most successful, we knew we were doing well. But again, going back to that, we were just that steady level space. It wasn't until the end because I hadn't really had much time to keep track of anything that was going on. I hadn't realised how successful it had been until I was in the car drive home back with the head coach once we were in the UK. So it was a bit bizarre when like you get back and you decompress and you're like, oh, that was mega, and then you're like, but I was a part of that. But at the time you don't know because you're just moving on to the next thing and you're just rolling and going through and you're just getting through day-to-day, session to session really. So it was massively successful, but I think that's probably where the glitz and glams come from the media. But when you're actually on the ground running and going with it, you don't notice it. You obviously celebrate when the athletes are coming back into the prep space area with the medals, and athletes are doing well. But you've also got the athletes that are just a little bit off there where they wanted to be, or they've just come fourth and they're upset about that, or they've not hit their PB, or it's not gone their way as well. So I think it just comes back to trying to be that level person in the middle that I didn't realise how well we had done until we'd got back, in all honesty, which when you say it sounds terrible out loud, but it is just because I was there doing my job, and my job is to support the athletes and be that level person. So it's not getting swamped into the glitz and the glam of the success, I guess.
So with that in mind, medals aside, is there a moment that kind of sticks in your head that you think, I'll remember that, I'll sort of cherish that moment?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot, and I think the more I talk to people about it, the more the little gems come back. And like I was saying, some of the S14s, so those are the intellectual impairments, some of the comments they come out with like really, really entertained me. At one point, they told some other athletes that I was a shot putter. I'm not even an athlete, let alone a shot putter. But there's some like real standout ones for me. So Olivia Summer-Newton was an athlete I worked really closely with, kind of through the games. She's under 18, so we had to chaperone her on the buses to and from the village. So I managed to spend quite a lot of time with her on those bus journeys, like half hour, 40 minutes, where we built a real relationship. She did massively well. Not that she would ever think that at the time. Everything was always on a negative spin for Olivia. Nothing ever quite went the way. She always just missed out a little bit. So we had a lot of upset journeys back and forth the pool, and it was just trying to get her to flip around and be able to go, right, we're going to race now, let's try and turn it around. And she actually did manage to get a bronze medal eventually. And she doesn't like touch, Olivia. She doesn't like people being in her space very much, and to be let into her area where she was talking to me. And after she got that bronze medal, I was so proud of her. It was right at the end of it. I just was like, that was a real moment for me. And I said to her, can I give you a hug? Like, I'm super proud of you, because we'd been on this journey across it was a 10-day event calendar. It was a long time. And she was like, yeah. And for me, that was just one of those little moments where you're like, that's really special. I've really been a part of your journey. And then another probably highlight, which just entertains me a lot, is I took some of them up the Eiffel Tower. So there was the opportunity for some of them to go to the last leg, the TV show, but the under-18s weren't able to go. So me and the other team manager were like, oh, we'll do something nice with you. We'll take you up the Eiffel Tower. And just seeing the member of the public, so we were all out in our kit, just members of the public trying to chat to them and just being there again, just seeing Paris for a little bit, but just seeing them in the awe of just like, oh, the Olympic rings are on front of the Eiffel Tower, and we'd driven past the Arc de Triomphe, which had the Agitos on, and them just realizing how big it is because we were in such a bubble. And they just were moaning about how many steps they had to walk up. You know, these fit Paralympic athletes, they'd finished racing. It was like the last day of racing, and they're moaning that they've got to walk up all these steps because the lift was fully booked, so they had to do the stairs instead. So yeah, and then there's always just little moments that you always forget about, just like working with the other team managers. Like you just will have such a giggle. Like I giggled every day over something, and even on the hard days you had a laugh. So lots of standouts, but they were probably the two that I kind of stand out the most at the moment. But like I say, I still think I'm processing it all a little bit.
It's amazing to hear those stories. They're really, really sort of touching and inspirational. So I guess moving forward, then, having obviously had that and having had those experiences, what do you, I guess, think or hope the legacy of the Paralympics is for parasport, I guess, in Britain and in Wales and Welsh swimming moving forward?
I hope it's just opened everybody's eyes up to how elitist it is. Like these are elite athletes. And I know from just me being there, like I've had friends and family that watched it, were just like, okay, wow, these are like high level athletes, and how do they do it? And it just, I think, just opens the perception up even more of like, it can be inclusive and anybody can do it. And they're not just doing it, they're absolutely smashing it, and they're doing a really good job at it. So I just hope it is just that ability to just show everyone can give it a go. Like, and they aren't Mickey Mouses doing it. They are like elite athletes swimming quicker than most of us that just still train for a bit of recreational fun. You know, it is an elite sport, and they do put as much time and commitment into it as possible. I also just think, I hope it raises awareness of the other barriers they face as well. So like, you look at the visually impaired girls and the need for tappers and things like that. I think it just, hopefully if somebody now saw somebody in a pool or in a space where they might need an extra hand, people would just be like, they're overcoming something else that we don't have to think about all the time. Like you look at some of the Chinese swimmers that have no arms, they're just getting out the pool. Like you just hopefully take things a little bit less for granted when you do them yourself as an able-bodied person.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. What's next for you, Verity? You know, I think they've just announced the Commonwealth Games, you know, should be returning to Glasgow in 2026. Is that on your radar? And you know, what's in the pipeline for you?
Yeah, at the moment it's just straight back into uni work, because that's start of the term. To be honest, I'll take any opportunity that's offered to me. I'll always be up for the challenge or the opportunity. They've got the World Championships in Singapore next year as well, which I think get overlooked a little bit by things like the Commies and the World Paralympics. So there's the Worlds. But honestly, like, it's not all about the high level meets for me. Like, I will probably be going to just some local English meets to help and support as well. So it's not always those massive world commies, European, like Paralympic Games. Sometimes it is just the grassroots stuff where I'll be going to Northampton at Christmas to a club inclusive meet where I'll support some of the like national program athletes there. So it's not always the top stuff. Sometimes it is just the grassroots of being at Sheffield for summer championships. So I've not seen the event calendar for next year because right now I can't even think about standing back in a poolside team managing. I need a bit longer. But yeah, I'm not too sure. But yeah, definitely commies would be on the cards and whatever else they might offer me.
Staying grounded. I like it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Reg. I think that wraps it up, Dan.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much. That was amazing. Really, really insightful.
Yeah. Thanks again, Verity. And yeah, we'll speak to you soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was some fantastic insight from Verity there on her experiences as a team manager in Paris and at a grassroots level. If you want to get involved in team managing or you want to get involved in paraswimming in general, head over to our website or drop us an email and we'll point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. But for now, moving forward, obviously we've just come off the back of Paris and the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games, but LA in 4 years is now in our sights, as is Glasgow with the Commonwealth Games in a couple of years. And one person who's going to be wanting to be involved in both of those events is Lily Rice. James and I caught up with her recently. So here's our conversation.
We're delighted to be joined by Lily Rice, our 2022 Commonwealth Bronze Medalist. Hi Lily, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
We're good, thank you. Back in training now. How was your summer break?
Yeah, it was really good. Had a bit of time off, and then be back in the pool for a little bit now as well.
Nice. Go anywhere nice?
No, just stayed around Pembrokeshire, if I'm honest. Yeah, I did a day up in Bristol actually, but otherwise just stayed around here.
Nice. So how you finding getting back into the water then this season? You sort of building? Have you got some big goals this year?
Yeah, so we've just been doing like a lot of technical stuff at the moment. This is our first week now of ramping it up a bit. So we did like 9.5K yesterday. So kind of just building it back up now. But all in all, it's going well. Plans for the season at the moment aren't something we're focusing on. We're just focusing on technique and kind of having a little reset, really.
Nice. Were you sort of itching to get back in the pool after watching what was going on in Paris?
I know, I was watching it and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to find out there. Or as you start putting yourself in that situation. It was really good to watch, like seeing other athletes I've trained with and competed with doing so well.
Yeah, especially Reese. What did you make of his? That was some swim in the IM, wasn't it?
Yeah, his comeback was insane. We were like, oh no, he's gonna just miss out, and then like all of a sudden he just comes like flying past. So yeah, really happy for him.
Amazing. And just in terms of that kind of inspiration, just how big is an event like the Paralympic Games to sort of get your juices flowing again and get you back in the pool?
Yeah, it's huge, especially like if you think about like London 2012 as well, like so much sport was like boosted off the back of that. And I think then with like Tokyo the other year, it was kind of all like silenced down. And I remember like loads of athletes saying that they just didn't enjoy the games. And then to see like all the stadiums sold out in Paris again, it's just amazing. And hopefully that will bring more back off that again now. I know I've seen loads of like comments on social media, people being like, oh, Olympics is boring, Paralympics is amazing. So yeah, it seems it's had like quite a positive feedback.
Yeah, and obviously for you on your journey, like medaling the Commonwealth Games and then just unfortunately missing out this time around, but then having, Glasgow to look forward to and then LA, I guess you would have had a couple of tough moments, looking back over the past few months, but does that sort of, that motivation of having those big sort of marquee events, does that kind of really spur you on?
Yeah, it does. I've had such a rough season last season. It was so like up and down, so inconsistent, when literally the one thing I said was that I wanted to be consistent. So it didn't really go to plan, but to now like know where commies is going to be, and think about pushing it on, World Championships, European Championships, and like other events in the future. Obviously, you've got the games as well in LA in 4 years' time. So now it's like a reset and a new goal to work for. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, you haven't had it easy, have you? You during Birmingham, you were suffering a bit with illness and stuff, weren't you? Like,
yeah.
Just talk us through the last couple of years, because like you said, it's been a roller coaster.
Oh yeah, so I started swimming, like I did a talent ID thing, but there was a kind of link through Disability Sport Wales. I did that like the end of 2021, and then we were like, okay, we're going to put you in, because Paris Swimming Winters was in Swansea, so we're like, oh, it's an ideal place to get classified and see how I'd go. So I did that, and I made like finals that were like games for athletes that would be qualifying for the Commonwealth Games. So that was pretty cool. We all got a bit excited about that. And then I moved to my current club now, Performance Programme in Pembrokeshire. And we kind of just started working up from there. And then we did national championships, which is like April time, I think. And I smashed out a time that would have got me like top 10 world rankings, which puts me top 8 Commonwealth. So that got me onto the team for Commonwealth. Then got really ill, and then competed at Commy, still managed to medal. So that was very, very good. And then pretty much stayed ill for the next season and half the one after. And then all of a sudden figured out what was wrong. And now I did first season, which I haven't been in. So that's been quite nice.
And how are you looking forward, I guess, to this season? And with the news that the Commonwealth Games going to Glasgow, has that affected your plans? I know that's a bit further away, but looking forward, what are the sort of plans for you now, for this year, the next year, and even the next 4 years, maybe?
Like at the moment, I'm just like building up, seeing how we can push it, looking at different techniques and stuff. And then I don't think there's going to be a World Series in the UK this year. So probably like hopefully get abroad and do one of those, just to keep it in, like knowing where, oh my God, I've lost it. Like kind of know where the other athletes are. And then yeah, just kind of push it through the season, see what happens, see how far I can go, and then really nail it down next year then, and see how it goes. Really just gonna go with the flow. Now obviously I know what was making me ill, so I can obviously work on avoiding those things and try my best recovery wise, and just improving like the little things that can make a big impact really.
Yeah, it's a very complex sort of area, isn't it, Paraswim, in the classifications especially. Just talk to us a bit about your classification. And I know you were looking potentially at getting reclassified, weren't you, at one point?
Yeah.
So just, maybe just talk us through that a little bit.
So I'm classified as an S8, SB7 and SM8 athlete. Most of us have an impairment in our lower limbs. And then there'll be a few athletes that have an impairment that's quite severe in one arm. So they'll either be an amputee or like not able to really move that arm. So they swim with one arm. So yeah, it's kind of, to be fair, my class seems to be one of the ones that's pretty much, it's either both legs or one arm. But then you can get a lot of other classifications that can look quite broad, especially when you're going down into the lower classes. But yeah, I'm kind of classed as a mid to high range impairment, mid to low range impairment really. So I'm an 8. Obviously it goes 1 to 10 for the physical impairments. Cool.
And in terms of PEMs, obviously they're great with paraswimmers. You know, Nick and the team there have been brilliant. Just in terms of how they integrate paraswimming, just talk us through how they sort of do it on a day-to-day basis with you, and just how effective they are really.
Well, with us, obviously we are paraswimmers, but we're not really seen as a paraswimmer. We'll do the same sets that everyone else will do, and then Nick will make like a slight adaptation to that. There's a S14 athlete in my club as well. So it's kind of making the adaptations that are done for here. And then obviously ones that are done for me that will be slightly different as well. But all in all, we tend to really do the same kind of thing. And then there is there's a few other athletes that have had interest and that have come into our program from other clubs just to do a few sessions with us. So yeah, it's all kind of just trying to integrate it all together really. We're not seen as different athletes, we're all just seen as one team.
It's interesting to hear that, and what sort of makes an environment inclusive and welcoming for everyone. For any other clubs listening who maybe don't have any paraswimmers or want to make themselves ready for, if any do want to join the club, what advice would you give them, as well as what you just said, maybe inside the pool, outside the pool? From your perspective, what would make a really sort of welcoming environment?
I just say ask for advice, ask the athlete what they need. Literally, like for us, it's become so normal in our club. Like if I'm racing and I'm in the middle lane, by the end of the race, my wheelchair will be at the side of the pool, and it wouldn't necessarily been a coach that would have done it. It would have been one of my teammates that would have just done that for me. Like no one thinks too much about that. So I think, try not to think that the athlete is that different. Include them in everything that you can do, and if you're unsure how to, then ask someone.
Do you still find challenges with accessibility, sort of in wider life and aquatics really?
I feel like in my pool it's really good. We have our own changing room that's really like wide, so we've got our own thing, and then we've just stolen like a pool bench to go in the showers, and then Nick printed out some like big yellow signs that say don't remove the bench. So yeah, I feel like with us and with my leisure centre, they're really good with it. But then I feel like when I've travelled to other pools, I feel like that's when it more hits in, to be fair. I feel like a lot of the pools that we travel to though are pretty accessible because most of them are the ones hosting paraswimming meets. But like for example, we went on a camp last year, and there was little things there that weren't as accessible, like having to take detours of the way, or there'd be steps to certain areas of the pool. But we just kind of always find a way around it, to be fair. I feel like I'm not one of the people that stress about it too much. I know, like, I think from like my background of my other sport kind of gave me that confidence for like, oh, there's a few steps, I'm fine, and things like that. So yeah.
And obviously since you've been kind of back in the pool, back swimming, there seems to be a real sort of uptick in Welsh paraswimmers and paraswimming just in general in Wales. Have you found that?
Yeah, for sure. I think even after like commies, I think because it was relatively local, I think a lot of people went to watch. And there has been so many new paraswimmers coming into the Swim Wales programme. It's been really exciting, really, to see like these younger swimmers progress as well. Because obviously it's been like us guys performing higher, and then these guys are now catching up to us. So it's really nice to see all their improvements, and also to meet other athletes that have similar impairments. Like when you go away, you don't really tend to talk to like your competition, but when you're in an environment like that, you've got athletes that'll be asking you for help, or how to do this and how to do that, and you're able to teach them and spread your knowledge.
And how do you, I guess, see your role potentially within the national teams or the national squads now? Like you say, with more swimmers coming through and younger swimmers coming up the ranks, how do you see yourself in your role now? Are you a role model as someone who's been there sort of for a couple of years now, do you think?
Yeah, I guess I do. I didn't really think about it, but then there's a young lad that has the same classification as me. And then he's done a few of the international meets, and we've all got to know him quite well. And then he's always asking us like questions about like, what do we do in pre-pool and post-pool, and like how do we stay warmer before meets, and when do we put our suits on and things like that. And so I guess, yeah, we are seen as mentors really to the younger athletes.
Cool. And I mean, just looking forward as well. I mean, with Britain especially, at the Paralympic Games, a record number of medals since I'm not sure what start of the century really. It's booming, isn't it? Like paraswimming in Britain is booming.
Yeah.
Like, how exciting is it just to be a part of it in general?
Yeah, it's so exciting. I mean, watching like the Paralympic team from GB, like a lot of those athletes were not on program like 2 years ago, and it's insane to see that like the rise of it's gone so quickly, and like seeing the athletes not just like qualifying but like medaling, and it's like it's just insane to see how like it's being boosted across the country really.
Yeah, and you mentioned your previous sport as well. Do you still do a bit of the sort of the wheelchair BMXing as well, or?
Do you know what? I've not done it in about a year probably. Me and my friend had a little trip away last summer and we did a bit. But I have promised someone that I will meet them at the skate park at some point. And then also one of the guys that was at the Paralympics said he's moving back down here. So he wants to have a little go as well. So I probably will end up back there quite soon. But yeah, I've been keeping away from it. Nick hates the idea of me doing it because he doesn't want me to get injured.
I was going to say, have you had to promise no backflips in wheelchairs?
He came last time I went to the skate park down here. He came with me to make sure that I wouldn't do anything too big or too silly.
Amazing. So yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, in terms of next steps, you mentioned you've got a camp in Lanzarote in February, and just building towards that now.
Yeah, our training's starting to ramp up now. So we've kind of over the technical side really, and we're starting to build more meters in now and do longer swims. So yeah, building it up. We did our county champs last week. I think I did like 10 races and then 2 relays each day, so it's pretty insane. And then we did another meet, which was Pembrokeshire versus Carmarthenshire, which is more of like a friendly, fun one. But yeah, getting back into it, getting back to those race skills now, and just working on it, see how we're going really.
Cool. Cool. And if there's someone watching or listening to this who maybe is thinking about getting into swimming, what would your advice be to them?
Maybe reach out to a local club or local leisure centre. There's always like classes going on that can help you. There's adult swimming lessons, children's swimming lessons. And it doesn't mean that you're not able to take part in them if you're disabled. A lot of the Swim Wales like swimming teachers and like people that are in the Learn to Swim programme have a lot of experience with para swimming, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you out in one way or another.
Cool. We're going to do some quick fire questions to finish it off. So, Lily, what is your pre-race go-to hype song?
I don't actually listen to any music before I race, but I love like the Spotify Discover Weekly. I'll just put like a random song on and hope that it's good, really.
Favorite thing to fuel up with before a big race or event?
Controversial, but like a jacket potato with tuna.
Solid. Carbs, protein. It's got everything you need. Favorite pool that you've ever raced in?
Do you know what? I love Swansea. I just like keep it local, I guess. But I did race in Glasgow, and I love that pool just because it felt like Swansea.
I think we can guess this one, but what's your favourite moment of your career so far?
Definitely commies. Even though like experience-wise, I was very new to it, and I was ill. But obviously, I guess winning a medal takes that out of it, really.
100%. And who's your biggest inspiration within the sport?
Again, I don't really look up to anyone. I feel like it's not really like a good thing to do. Like I don't feel like it's good for myself to try and compare myself to other people. But I have spent quite a bit of time with Alice Thomas this season, as she's been working with the paraswimming program more, and I think it's been really nice to have someone who's had similar experiences to me be able to give me like advice and stuff like that.
Cool. One thing that someone would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh no, I don't even know. Oh my God, I can't think of anything. I feel like I'm really open, so everyone just knows everything about me anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say Folly Farm.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I've got a job at a zoo, but I don't work with the animals.
And then finally, after race, hot shower or an ice bath?
Hot shower. I'm so cold all the time, so I love getting in the hot shower when it's cold. Yeah, love it.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Lily. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you, and good luck for the season.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks to Lily for joining us. Another really good, insightful conversation that we enjoyed having, and hopefully you've enjoyed listening to. And that brings us to the end of the second episode of SplashCast. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you all enjoyed.
Yeah, and if you did enjoy, don't forget, drop us a 5-star rating, please, on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next month. Thank you again.
Cheers.
Cheers.